My name is Sara. I come from a quiet little town where evenings smelled of rain and clay, and where dreams were simple but hearts were full. We didn't have much, yet our home was never empty. There was always laughter, chai on the stove, and my father's tired smile after a long day. My mother would say, "Grace and patience are a woman's jewels. Never lose them." Those words shaped who I became. As a child, I believed love was a song, soft, safe, endless. In movies, it looked so effortless. A man's steady hand, a promise in his eyes. I carried that picture into adulthood, tucked between my prayers and private hopes. When I turned 24, my parents arranged my marriage. Everyone around me celebrated, but I kept a quiet storm inside. Marriage wasn't just celebration. It was surrender, courage, and stepping into the unknown. The morning of my wedding came sooner than my heart was ready for. The house buzzed with cousins, music, and the smell of henna. Gold jewelry weighed down my neck, the red veil brushed my face, and yet beneath the glitter, I felt like a little girl pretending to be a bride. Each congratulation felt distant, as if the sound came through water. I smiled, but my thoughts kept circling the same fear. What happens tonight? People tell stories about the first night. Some giggle, some warn, some whisper. None of them prepare you for the weight of uncertainty. I signed the marriage papers with shaking fingers. My father's voice trembled as he blessed me. "Be patient, my daughter. Kindness builds the strongest homes." His words were heavy in my chest as I left the house that had built me. The car ride to my new home was silent, except for the rhythmic beat of my pulse. When I stepped out, strangers became family with one sentence. "Welcome, Bahu." Smiles surrounded me, warm and polite. They led me through rooms glowing with fairy lights and rose garlands. I lowered my gaze, afraid my eyes would betray my nervousness. Later that night, the house quieted. Laughter faded behind closed doors. Someone teased softly, "Now the princess meets her prince," before guiding me into a room filled with fragrance and candlelight. The bed was covered with petals, red against white. The air shimmered with perfume, but my thoughts were loud and messy. I sat, rigid and still, hands pressed together to hide their trembling. Then I heard the door close. My heart jumped. Footsteps approached, slow, steady. I didn't look up, though I could feel him nearby. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence stretched until it felt alive. Then came a gentle voice. "Sara," he said quietly, "I know this is new for you. I won't rush you. Let's just talk tonight." It startled me. I had imagined something entirely different. Awkwardness, pressure, maybe expectation. But his voice held patience. When I finally lifted my eyes, I saw nervousness, not dominance. He smiled faintly, uncertain but kind, and the tension in my shoulders began to ease. He poured a glass of water and handed it to me. Our fingers brushed. It was a small touch, but my breath caught. He chuckled softly. "You look like you're facing an exam," he teased. I couldn't help it. I smiled. A tiny, awkward smile, but it changed the air between us. He began to talk. Not about romance, but about his school days. About the time he broke a window playing cricket. About how terrified he was walking into the room tonight. The honesty felt disarming. For the first time, I realized that fear wasn't mine alone. When silence returned, it wasn't heavy anymore. He looked at me gently and asked, "May I hold your hand?" I nodded. His hand closed around mine, warm, calm, steady. The simple act felt sacred. Every breath I took seemed to sync with his. Then he said something I'll never forget. "I want you to feel safe first. Love can wait." Tears blurred my eyes before I could answer. All my anxious stories dissolved in that moment. He reached forward and wiped one tear with his thumb. The touch wasn't bold. It was soft, respectful. Then he leaned closer and kissed my forehead. "Tonight isn't about proving anything," he whispered. "It's about beginning something." I felt the world quiet around us. The candles flickered. The roses glowed faintly in the light. My heartbeat slowed as I rested my head on his shoulder. For the first time since morning, I felt peace. Simple, steady, and real. When morning sunlight touched my face, I woke to a stillness I had never known. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I felt a steady warmth beside me, his arm wrapped around me protectively. My heart whispered, I am not alone anymore. I turned slightly and watched him sleep. His breathing was calm, his hair tousled, his expression peaceful. I realized how different he was from what I had imagined a husband to be. Gentle, not demanding. Patient, not proud. Gratitude welled in me until it reached my eyes. I had been afraid of losing myself in marriage, but instead, I had found safety. I rose quietly and stood before the mirror. My reflection was no longer that of a nervous bride. My eyes held a quiet knowing. My lips curved into a small, honest smile. I was changed. Not because of what happened, but because of what didn't happen. No pressure, no fear, only respect. Behind me, his sleepy voice called, Where are you going so early, Mrs. Sara? I turned, startled, then laughed softly. Nowhere. I just woke up. He stretched lazily, his smile half hidden. Then don't leave me alone on our first morning. Those simple words filled the room with warmth. I walked back and sat beside him. He took my hand and kissed it gently. Sara, he whispered, last night you gave me trust. I promise I'll spend my life protecting it. Days after the wedding moved in a blur of rituals, relatives, and endless congratulations. Everyone asked the same question. How is your husband? I would only smile. How could I explain the little things? The way he noticed when I was tired. How he quietly helped when I spilled tea. How his eyes searched for me in crowded rooms as if nothing else mattered. Nights were ours alone. One evening we sat on the balcony beneath the stars. The air carried the scent of jasmine. He asked, Do you feel at home now? I hesitated, then answered, Yes, more than before. He smiled softly, leaned closer, and whispered, Then let me love you more deeply tonight. This time I didn't look away. I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. His touch wasn't hurried. Every gesture was gentle, every word filled with care. The world outside disappeared. For the first time, I understood intimacy not as something to fear, but as a quiet language between two souls. Each breath, each whisper, each kiss felt like a promise spoken without words. As days turned into weeks, I learned what real marriage meant. It wasn't always light and laughter. There were responsibilities, adjustments, and moments of silence. I missed my parents sometimes so deeply that I cried in secret, but my husband always noticed. One night, seeing my red eyes, he asked softly, Did you cry? I shook my head, but he reached for my hand. Don't hide your tears from me. I'm your home now. Whatever you feel, let me share it. That sentence broke me open. I realized then that marriage wasn't about perfection. It was about truth. It was about standing beside each other when everything else felt uncertain. I told him honestly, I was scared before our wedding night. I thought you might not care about how I felt. He looked at me, his voice firm but kind. Sara, a man who forces is not a husband. Real love waits. It protects. It listens. Those words carved themselves into my heart. That night, I didn't just love him because he was mine. I loved him because he understood what love truly means. We talked for hours after that, about childhood dreams, foolish mistakes, the funny things we both did growing up. He told me how once he broke a neighbor's window with a cricket ball and blamed the wind. I laughed until my eyes watered. The laughter built something between us stronger than promises. Friendship. Later, as we sat quietly, he took my hand again and said, I will never let your smile fade without bringing it back. Tears filled my eyes again, but this time they were warm. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. It sounded like the rhythm of safety. Marriage, I realized, wasn't a single night or ceremony. It was hundreds of moments where two people choose kindness over pride, patience over anger, and love over fear. We had arguments, yes. Moments of silence, moments of doubt. But beneath it all, respect held us together. Sometimes at night, I sit alone on the same balcony, looking at the sky filled with stars. I whisper a quiet prayer of gratitude. My first night could have been full of confusion and fear, but instead, it became the foundation of trust. To every woman who hears my story, remember this. Your first night, your marriage, your love should never begin with fear. Let it begin with faith. And to every man, be the kind of husband who makes her feel safe enough to bloom. Because love isn't about power. It's about choice. And when someone chooses you freely, that is the purest love of all. If this story touched your heart, remember, real love doesn't demand. It understands. It doesn't rush. It waits. It doesn't hurt. It heals.